Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to the panel of Sea of Opportunities, the New Capital Wave. I am Yimie, reporter from TechNode Global, covering tech news and trends across Southeast Asia. I am the moderator for this session. So today we have a panel with amazing prominent investors here. Let's welcome Thomas from Gobi Partners, Patrick from Catcha Group, Hero from BEENEXT. So before we go into the session, perhaps our panelists can introduce themselves and their firms briefly. Maybe we can start with Thomas.
Yeah, hi everybody. Yimie, it's great to be here along with my other panelists, Patrick and Hero. My name is Tom. I'm the chair of Gobi Partners. We are a Pan-Asian VC with about 1.2 billion assets under management. We help entrepreneurs from the early to growth stages, and we like to focus on kind of emerging and underserved markets. We've been doing this for a long time. We're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary next year. We've expanded to 13 locations across Asia. And I'm delighted to be here, especially with Patrick and Hero and yourself, Yimie.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be on the panel with Hero and Tom as well. My background is a little bit different. I started life as an entrepreneur about 20 years ago, and then I became a serial entrepreneur, and now I think I'm a serial investor. So I kind of cover all bases. I love entrepreneurship. I love backing entrepreneurs. I believe that the only constant in life is disruption, and as long as I'm on the right curve of disruption, then I'm doing well. Look, I love Southeast Asia and I love tech. So any chance I get to talk about it with people who share the same beliefs is something I just feel so blessed to do. So thanks for having me today.
Next, we have Hero from BEENEXT.
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Yimie, and good to be here on the panel with Patrick and Thomas. I represent BEENEXT. BEENEXT is early stage VC fund focused out of Singapore. We invest in India and Southeast Asia. We are a 6-year-old startup, as we call ourselves. We have a long way to go, and we partner with great founders who are looking to build legendary companies from this part of the world. So, thanks.
Okay, let's set some context here. When we talk about Southeast Asia, it's a market with a population of 570 million and a booming GDP expected to reach 4.7 trillion by 2025. And the 6 largest countries in Southeast Asia represent one of the world's largest and fastest growing regions. The COVID-19 pandemic has also accelerated digitalization in many countries. So commerce and businesses were forced to move online. So in Southeast Asia, tech companies are drawing attention from investors around the world, especially with the announcement like Grab listing on NASDAQ through SPAC, Gojek merging with Tokopedia to form tech giant GoTo, the listing of Bukalapak in Indonesia as well. So far this year, there are already 23 tech startups reaching unicorn status after raising funds. As comparison, last year there were only 4 startups reaching unicorn status. So Southeast Asia is seen in a sweet spot. So I would like to know from all the panelists, currently as countries are reopening their borders and economies, how is the prospect of the tech sector in Southeast Asia, and where do you all see the opportunities? And also within the region, do you all have any preference in terms of geographical areas and sectors, and what's the reasons behind? Maybe anyone would like to start first?
Look, I can share our thoughts, what we are seeing, and for us, we see prospects are pretty bright in the region. We think sectors like health tech, insurance tech, fintech, ed tech, they all are seeing digital shift. All these business models have been pulled forward by 2 to 4 years. because of the COVID. And we are partnering across sectors like consumer internet, payments, insurance tax, sustainability, to name a few things. We think it's just the beginning of this next big wave that will come from this part of the world. And we are excited to partner with founders in these different areas.
How about Thomas? I see Gobi Partners, there were a few deals in Philippines. So what's your view on this region? Any preference in terms of, are you seeing Philippines as the next big thing, or any sector you have a preference in it?
Yeah, no, I broadly agree with Hiro. I think Southeast Asia, I think it's been said before, is about to enter into this golden age, I think, of venture capital. I think everything across the region looks very exciting. But if I had to pick within Southeast Asia, I think everybody knows the obvious one. Indonesia, fantastic. Will continue to do incredibly well. If I had to pick some markets that we at Gobi like, I think the first one is Malaysia. I think Malaysia's been sort of this hidden gem. I think there are a lot of companies, startups here, we call them hippos, because when you look at them, they don't seem that big because they're kind of submerged. But when they come out of the water, they're huge. And there are a lot of these hidden companies, I think, in Malaysia. So we love Malaysia. Yimie, you've already touched upon the Philippines. I think the Philippines is going to be the next rising star in Southeast Asia. Again, we feel very fortunate. We were an early backer of Kumu. As you know, they just raised one of the largest rounds in the history of the Philippines, $50 million from General Atlantic. And I think there's more to come. So again, a market that may have been overlooked in the past, but about to enter into the spotlight very soon. And then, of course, I think Vietnam, very exciting. Gobi's looking to do more. And I think there are a number of exciting companies that are going to follow in the footsteps of what we've seen come out of Indonesia. So those are three markets we really like, Malaysia, Philippines, and Vietnam.
How about Patrick?
I would echo everything that's already been said, but I would also say, yes, everyone loves Indonesia, right? Because it's got 300 million people, and so that's where you focus. But I think there's a lot of, I think what was Thomas's word, hippos. I think there's a lot of great companies under the radar in Philippines, Thailand, and Malaysia. And so, I mean, because I've been an entrepreneur most of my life, I tend to be a contrarian. I tend to do the opposite of what everybody else wants to do. And so because everybody else is going to Indonesia, which is great and it makes sense. I think that there's a lot of people who are not going to Thailand, not going to Philippines, not going to Malaysia, not going to Vietnam. And I think that's where you're going to find A, great entrepreneurs, B, really compelling valuations, and C, probably less competition because all the capital just seems to be going to Indonesia. So look, I love Southeast Asia as a whole. Don't get me wrong. I think Southeast Asia is the greatest market in the world to back right now. But I think don't forget the other parts of Southeast Asia. Don't be all about Indonesia.
Okay. Patrick mentioned about valuation. So with more attention globally, and also SPACs looking to invest in the region, would this affect deal sourcing? And also, are we seeing valuation wise? Are we seeing crazy valuations yet? And what's your expectation moving forward? Maybe Hiro?
Sure, yeah. Look, first of all, it depends. What is the definition of crazy? What's crazy for one investor may be very normal for somebody else, right? Depending on their perspective and depending on the type of outcome they are expecting. But that being said, in some markets, we are seeing valuation very high. So even though we are discussing about Southeast Asia, in India, for example, in some of the companies, we are seeing rounds being done at 100 times sales. So clearly, there is a reason for that. If you are into a sector that there are only maybe one or two companies trying to build out on that, and you know that next 10 years will be huge. So a lot of capital is chasing very few opportunities, and people can still underwrite some sort of those valuation. But that being said, that is not a new normal. These are very few cases. Overall, yes, valuation are getting higher in the late stage rounds, but BEENEXT, we do early stage, seed and series A. So in early stage, valuation inflation is still not there yet. It's still normal, but as Patrick rightly said, actually, when we look at deal across India, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, different market, depending on where the competition is, you can see for same founder quality, valuation can be very different. So overall, we haven't seen a bigger impact, at least in the early stages, but in the later stages, there may be higher valuation. That's how I'll classify.
How about Patrick? What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think it's absolutely fascinating, and I think kind of I echo kind of what Hiro said. And here's the funny thing: like I've been in internet for so long, like since 1999, right? So that's more than 20 years, and every year people always say our valuation's too high, our valuation's too high, our valuation's too high. Like I remember when Facebook bought WhatsApp for 20 billion. And then Instagram for $1 billion, right? Oh my God, that was crazy. How could you do that? But you know what? Those two deals are probably, the greatest M&A deals in the history of the internet, right? And so, number one, I think that valuations will always seem high, always, right? Because you're investing in disruptive sectors and you're backing entrepreneurs with a great vision. And so, but number two is I think you can't take a short-term view, right? If you're taking a 5-10-year view, which everyone on this phone call is doing, then a valuation is not too high, because if you're going to back someone who's attacking a big TAM and at the end of 5-7 years they own 10% of that TAM, then no valuation is too high to pay today if they achieve the disruption of the TAM, right? And so I think the approach is don't put all your eggs in one basket, have a diversified portfolio, and as long as you're willing to back entrepreneurs chasing a big TAM and with a good strategy to disrupt that TAM, then whatever valuation you think is today surely can't be too high, because if a business is growing at 100% year on year, they're going to be a huge business before you know it.
Okay. Thomas, what's your view?
Yeah, my view is, I think, again, and some of this may have changed with the recent developments in China, but what we observed in the past was that, first of all, compared to China, everything in Southeast Asia looked reasonable. Okay, so I think that was the first. Now that's changed in the last couple of months, and everybody who's joining us knows the reasons why. So again, there's been some adjustments in China valuations, but broadly in the past, Southeast Asia was priced at a discount to China. Okay, I think that was broadly true. Now within Southeast Asia, Indonesia is always priced at a premium, and I think it's well known that there's an Indonesian premium. You could have the same startup in Indonesia versus Malaysia, and the startup in Indonesia will get an Indonesian premium. So what that really means is that, as Patrick was saying earlier, is all the other markets you can kind of find great entrepreneurs and great startups at a discount. And some of these markets, like the Philippines, they're huge. They're 110 million population. The amount of capital that's gone in is minuscule compared to Indonesia. So again, not to say there's anything. I mean, Indonesia is fantastic and deservedly so. It's getting a lot of attention, but I think for the people who have spent time in Southeast Asia and know Southeast Asia, there are great bargains and great overlooked or underappreciated opportunities in the rest of Southeast Asia. And dare I say, there are some real bargains out there, when you compare it to Indonesia, and then certainly when you look at it compared to China.
Okay, cool. You guys are really bullish on this region, but would you share what are the challenges investing in this region, and how you guys are addressing these challenges? Okay, maybe I'll start with Hiro.
Yeah, well, one big challenge that we are seeing is that as more capital is coming in, more investors are chasing fewer opportunities. We are seeing the shortage of talent in some of the cases, which is pretty big issue, because there are only so many good engineers. There are only so many good designers. For example, like one of our gaming company in Singapore has very tough time in just recruiting great designers. So this is actually interesting problem to have, but it's something to think how to solve that over longer term. So for us, currently, this is one of the biggest thing which we are dealing with across our portfolio, where we are trying to figure out how to nurture and create great talent and retain them and give them a path to success so that they can grow with the business itself. So that's one of the biggest thing that I wanted to highlight that we are seeing.
Yep. Look, I'm seeing a similar thing across the region as well, and it's quite fascinating to see.
Like Thomas, like any challenges because Gobi Partners is in a few countries in the region, and how does Gobi Partners manage it?
Yeah, I think we see a different challenge. I actually think definitely shortage of talent is one. There's always a shortage of talent, right? But I think one of the challenges we see is as latecomers come in, investors, sometimes they don't do their research. They end up funding a lot of Me Too clones that are not actually market leaders. But are maybe the number 4 or 5 player, and they may be coming to the region for the first time. They meet these guys, it's like their first date, and they fall in love, and they may not have done the market research. So what it does is, it's something like we saw in China. You're going to get excess competition in certain hot sectors, but that's to be expected. It just means that it's a good sector, and again, there may have to be a consolidation phase. So I think that again, I don't know if it's a problem, but it's too much of a good thing.
Okay. So before Southeast Asia, you guys have been investing in elsewhere, US, Australia, China. So is there any technology trend or technology startups you see elsewhere that you think it's great idea, great technology that should be brought into Southeast Asia? Can you share? Again, maybe I'll start with Hiro again.
Actually, what we like is one thing we have noticed in the region is rather than funding Me Too models, it's better to look at the founders who are trying to solve a real local problem. So that's one thing I want to highlight. So based on that, there aren't any particular startup that we want to be created in this part based on the Western model, but one area of keen interest to us is something around sustainability and climate tech, which we really want to focus on, and we are looking for early opportunities to learn more about how founders are thinking about solving this particular issue. And we are hoping that in next few years it will develop very well here as rest of the world is also focusing on this particular area. So this is one area that is of big interest to us.
Okay. Patrick?
Yeah, I think what I found really interesting is that if you look at Southeast Asia tech over, say, the last 20 years, I think the first 15 years, entrepreneurs were just taking ideas from the US, literally cut and paste. There was no innovation. Whatever worked in the US, they would just take that. I think what you've seen in the last 5 years is that the better and more successful Southeast Asian companies are actually copying from China. Less so from they're taking a little bit from the West, probably taking more from China, right? And you're seeing that with Grab, and you're almost seeing that with everybody pursuing the super app strategy. If you go to anyone in America 3 years ago and said, "What's a super app?" No one would have any idea what a super app is, right? And look at Facebook as the example. They own 3 of the top messaging apps in the world, and they're completely different. One is WhatsApp, one is Facebook Messenger, one is Instagram, right? And it's only now that they're trying to put them together. Whereas you look at China really went down this super app strategy a long time ago. So what you're seeing is, I'm seeing is that the more successful Southeast Asian companies are the ones that are more inspired by China and Korea and less inspired by the US. So I think you'll start to see more of that. And I'm very, very hopeful that one day China and America will be inspired by the Southeast Asian entrepreneurs and the ideas that we come up with.
anything from Thomas?
Yeah, no, I think Patrick makes a great point, and what we're seeing is an even a further extension of that. I think one of the big opportunities for Southeast Asian startups is as we kind of enter this interesting period in geopolitics, Southeast Asia may actually be a bridge between the two kind of distinct tech stacks that are developing, the one around China and the one from the US. Southeast Asia startups may actually be the ones that can bridge both. And so I think there's going to be some really interesting opportunities. And as Patrick was saying, yeah, this what we call CFC, copy from China. I think Southeast Asian startups can not only copy from China, but also from the US, from India. Take all these things and make it their own. And this dynamic, crisscrossing of ideas and cross pollination is really taking place right here in Southeast Asia. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. It's like the crossroads of innovation are happening right here.
Okay, cool. Okay. Maybe I should change my the earlier question a little bit. Maybe is there any sector that you see in Southeast Asia that it's should startups should disrupt any particular sector?
Every sector. Maybe I'll go first if that's okay, and then I'll head over to Hero and Tom. Number one is that I think every sector is disruptible. And I started off by saying that I was an entrepreneur for the first from kind of 1999 onwards, and I built internet business models in Southeast Asia. And as an investor, I'm now investing in companies that are disrupting the internet companies that I built. So let me go back a step. Like, what I'm seeing is that every 5-10 years, there's new ideas disrupting the previous ideas. So even though I built internet businesses, there are now better, faster business models that I believe that should disrupt the businesses that I built before. So number one is that I wasn't flippant when I said every category is disruptible. I believe that every entrepreneur needs to look behind their back, and every 5-7 years, there's a better business model evolving and coming at you. And you look at Facebook, right? Mark Zuckerberg completely rebranded his entire company to Meta, right? And I think 6 months ago, everyone conceptually understood what the metaverse was, but probably thought it was a little fringe activity. He's now basically bet an entire $1 trillion company on a whole new direction, because I think he realizes that if he doesn't move big into the metaverse, some other 24-year-old Harvard dropout is going to reinvent Facebook in the metaverse and disrupt Facebook, right? And so that's why I think every category is ripe for disruptions. So number one, I think there's no categories that are done. Every category is ripe. But number two, we tend to prioritize categories where the NPS score of the incumbent is really bad, right? And so what that means is that if customers are not being served properly by the incumbents, and whether the incumbents are online companies or offline companies, but if customers are just getting a really, really bad experience, whether it's time to close the transaction, whether it's clarity, whether it's liquidity, whether it's like education, like whatever it is, if it's just a really bad user experience, then some smart entrepreneur is going to figure out how to crack that. And so when I look at, say, fintech as an example, right, like sending money, banking, like trying to get a loan, trying to get a credit card, these are all categories that have really bad NPS scores. Very few people love their bank. Very few people love their insurer. Very few people love the process of getting a home loan. Very few people love dealing with secondhand car dealers. So if you look at these are all categories with really bad NPS scores. So I believe these are the categories that are ripe for disruption today.
Okay. Anything you want to add on, Hero?
I mean, so no, actually, Patrick summed it very well. The way we think about digital disruption is a very simple philosophy that in any particular market, any particular country, any particular industry, whenever you start, or always business model that start, they always start with, let's say, horizontal consumer internet front-end facing type businesses. Once you start building out those businesses, you realize that you need to have payment processing capabilities pretty well. You need to have the logistic. You need to have the software in the back end on which things run. So all the other sectors also follow the suit, and that's how all these different companies get created in the process. And depending on now which country, which sector is at what stage of digitization, you can see how the ecosystem will evolve and where you need to look. Similarly, moving a little bit deeper with the COVID, a lot of other interesting areas where disruption is happening is clearly the health tech and insurance tech. Ed tech is becoming more regional, more global from this part of the world that we see. And then very early but few interesting opportunities around Web 3.0 that are coming up and shaping up. So that's how we are looking at overall landscape, and based on that, we see where a great founder is trying to build out a company in a probably very big addressable market, and try to see if we should partner with them and how we can help them in building out next breakout company.
Anything to add on, Thomas?
No, I think what Patrick and Hiro said was fantastic. I totally agree. I guess just to add in one slightly controversial idea would be, all these industries, rightly said, need to be disrupted. The one remaining one that's sort of been untouched is that of government. And so I think any government around the world has been probably slow to adopt all this technology innovation. And I think there's something going around the world where people are kind of unhappy. And I think, again, governments and regulatory bodies, call it reg tech or gov tech or whatever, I think that's going to be the next, and governments have huge budgets. If we can bring the same type of experience that the private industry is bringing and bring that to big government, bodies. I mean, just, who was happy during COVID when the government was trying to assist people with how they dispersed payments, right? I mean, I think those are going to be some big opportunities around the government. I don't know. Is there a name? Is it reg tech or gov tech? Hiro, Patrick, somebody needs to come up with a term.
It's called crypto.
And so, I think, as government needs to adopt. And I think government in the past has always been a bit slow, but I think, again, there's some great governments that are already on the cutting edge, and I see big opportunities there as well.
Okay. Oh, so yeah. So before we conclude the session, I would like to ask all panelists to give a piece of advice to investors who are looking into investing in this region, and also a piece of advice for tech startups in the region. So we'll start with Hiro.
I really don't have any advice. All I think is founders are building great companies. They should keep on building because that's what they do the best. And as their backers, we just want to back as many great founders as we can. And we encourage all the other investors to do the same. So that ecosystem gets better. It makes a better society. It makes an efficient society. So we are looking forward to next 10, 15 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, look, once again, I've been in this for 20 years. I would say in the beginning there was no funding and no founders. And then there was funding and no founders. Now there's funding and lots of founders. So I hope that it's kind of this ecosystem starts to develop, kind of what I said earlier, better ideas. Because right now all we're doing is taking ideas from other parts of the world. So I think, this region has great investors, great entrepreneurs. We now have the capital to fuel these great ideas. So I hope that this elevates the quality of ideas so we get to the point where one day a panel in America or India will be talking about how do we copy all these great ideas coming out of Southeast Asia.
Thomas?
No, I think that, Patrick, that's just the right note. And I think, again, for one advice for investors coming in, especially, I know there's so many, global investors, Yimie, listening into this, is Southeast Asia, it's Southeast Asia's time, right? Everything's kind of perfectly aligning. So you definitely should consider. But before you do that, talk to people who've been here. People like Patrick, Hiro, myself. We can help you avoid a lot of the kind of mistakes, So, we're reachable. And so I think that's one. And then I think, again, for founders as well, founders, think big, right? I think, again, this is going to be the era of really sustainable. I think Hiro touched upon it. I think COVID was the biggest wake-up call for humanity. It only illustrated how interlinked and how interdependent we all are. I think it's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur. The problems are bigger, right? And they're more global in nature. So I know there's a lot of you looking out there how to deliver, food faster, but there are other problems out there, right? I'm sure Hiro would agree. How do we get, how do we actually create, car engines that actually clean the air, right? How do we design packaging that becomes fertilizer? How do we create, prisons that are like schools? I mean, these are crazy ideas, but these are the big problems that we can be addressing. And I don't think there's ever been a time when entrepreneurs had such a where VCs were looking to fund the breadth of ideas that we're looking at today. And so I think it's an exciting time.
Okay. Thank you, Hiro from BEENEXT, Patrick from Catcha Group, and Thomas from Gobi Partners. Hope to see you all again